If you've ever struggled with reading, writing, or just putting your thoughts into words, you're not alone. I struggled with dyslexia my entire life, but I have a superpower and so can you. I've learned how to use AI and other tools even before AI existed to overcome my dyslexia. Now, this is just a piece of how I became a better professional. I want to do a quick story. I actually did a video about this in the past, and it hasn't gotten millions of views, but I've gotten really strong feedback. So I wanted to update it just because the technologies and the tools continue to change. In that last video, I showed things like Grammarly and speech to text, but AI and ChatGPT has just continuously gotten better. So first off, there's no one tool that is going to make you significantly better, teach you to read or things like that, but there are ways to really get around that and skirt around it. As a child, I had to go through tutoring basically every single day, and I went from the bottom 1 percentile of reading to the 99th percentile in just 1 year when I was in 7th grade, and it took a very long time. It was a lot of work and effort and a lot of support from my family, but we didn't have things like AI. Spell check was barely usable for me. Speech to text was nearly impossible. And now you have this tool in your pocket that turns you into a superhuman. Now, don't get me wrong, I think personally that disabilities are actually a strength because it teaches you how to learn differently, teaches you how to think outside of the box, and it teaches you how to work outside of a system that is designed for a certain type of person. Now, this is why I'm an entrepreneur. Pretty much everyone I know that is ADHD, dyslexic, and is successful has become an entrepreneur because they have to work around a system, not in a system. And that's really your superpower. So first off, stop being frustrated and celebrate this disability and then use it to become better and stronger. Now, my primary tool today is still ChatGPT. I basically stopped using Grammarly and I've stopped using all of these tools, and I want to show you how I'm using it to process my writing, my work. I'm using custom assistants or GPTs or folders to educate how I want to speak, and I'm training the AI to know my brain so that it's not just a basic answer, but it's answers based on the information I want it to give. Now, that's the trick here, and we'll go into a little bit of depth. But first, I'll just do a high level. So in ChatGPT, if you're a newer user and not kind of what I would call a super user, there's obviously the simple platform. There's a phone app, which I'd recommend getting, and this. Now, what I think is the coolest thing is they started adding dictation everywhere. It used to be phone only, and it used to be not so great. Now it crushes it. So I can use dictation. I can have a whole conversation. I have actually found that for some reason, sometimes it errors out on the computer, like if I got a phone call or something like that. So if you're trying to do a really long dictation, I actually use Loom because I pay for Loom, and I will just record an audio and I'll take the transcription and move it over. There's other tools that are designed for that, but that's besides the point. You can do it all in ChatGPT. So basically all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start talking, and it's obviously recording and transcribing what I'm saying. Now that's the power, is you can now just have a conversation with AI, with ChatGPT, honestly, probably all of the tools, and it will transcribe that into text. But the next step, so I'm going to transcribe this, and then I'm going to have it pull it up, but then I'm going to give it a prompt based on this. So I'm going to say, will you turn this into an email that I can share about ChatGPT with my PR team? And you can tell I'm dyslexic because I'm reading out loud and talking through it. Typing and reading was one of my biggest fears, giving speeches in public. So what it's done is, obviously this wasn't formatted in any specific way, but it's taken my words, and there's other prompts. And so I think as someone who is dyslexic or even ADHD, you really need to learn prompt engineering. And that's part of what has made me really successful, is because there are certain things that I don't like. This dash is kind of like a dead giveaway for people that are doing a lot of AI, and it can get really wordy and things like that. So what you want to do is, obviously now I can just copy and paste and use this. I can text, I can write whatever I was going to write, so on my phone. And then a lot of times I just say fix. I'll just put like, fix this. Obviously that's not going to fix it into anything, but super simple prompts. And then I'm just copying and pasting it to wherever I want. There's tools that I used. I think I had AI Chrome plugins that I haven't really been using. I pay for a lifetime access to, I think this is Mural or Merlin. What is it? Let's find out. It's Merlin. So I pay for a lifetime access to this, and it's supposed to sit in your inbox and do all these things. I just find that I'm able to train ChatGPT a little bit better. And what I mean by that is you'll come over here and you'll see folders and you'll see GPTs. I'm not going to go into too much depth, but I actually really like folders. And so folders are basically just a GPT style guide. Hopefully I spelled that right. And in this style guide, what you can do is you can upload folders and instructions. So what I can do is say, never use a dash when editing my writing. And then I can put that in here because I don't like those dashes. Now I could test this again, and it may or may not work perfectly. Sometimes you have to edit the prompts, and you can actually use AI to improve these prompts. But what you can do is, my company has an entire style guide for auto public relations. We're ranked one of the best PR firms in the world, but I can take that style guide, or I can continue to have conversations and have it learn my voice and learn my style and use ChatGPT's memory. So I can educate this version so it becomes a version of me, so that the writing doesn't become too formal or too conversational, and you just start educating this. So let's actually talk through this. So I'm going to talk through this and just do it live. I've never done this before, so hopefully it works. But basically, so hey ChatGPT, I want to make a very simple instructions/style guide on how I want to communicate through written email and text messages. I want a semi-formal communication with some personality. I never want to use dashes. I want to avoid sounding robotic. I want to remove things like I want to remove corny intros and things like that. I want to keep it in my own voice, but obviously polished grammar, spelling, style, and make sure that everything makes sense and the syntax is correct. All right, so now I want you to turn this into a very basic instruction and style guide that I'm going to upload into ChatGPT instructions. All right, so now it's loading. That's a real prompt. I'm going to use this now. Hopefully it loads. Again, sometimes this uploading it this way doesn't always work, but now what it's going to do is, again, I was able to do speech to text, and then it's going to give me a freaking style guide. Semi-formal, clear, avoid robotic, don't use dashes. There you go, goals. So obviously, I want to spend a little bit more time on this to get it exactly how I want. But the cool thing is now this is in your folder. So everything you do in this folder is kind of in a memory, especially the files you upload and the instructions. So everything in this folder is going to follow these instructions. And that's how it's kind of like an assistant or a brain specifically to you. And worst case, if your dyslexia is so bad that you have trouble even prompting this originally, hire someone, work with a parent, a friend, a family member. One of my superpowers as a person who was raised with dyslexia is I did go through tutoring for my entire life, and I had to learn to use my resource, and I had to learn to ask people for help. And that's empowered me to grow a team of over 70 people and a company that does 8 figures a year through my disability. Now, that might sound like, oh, I can't do that, blah, blah, blah. I want to hit one more story, and then I'll let you guys go because it's really what is, but I do want to stay to the end because I want to give you a freebie. But when my first job, I was an intern at a Fortune 500 company, and my manager, I killed the job. I did a really good job. All my goals were met, but my manager pulled me aside on my last day, or the last week. He actually got fired. But he said, Scott, I want to tell you that your writing and spelling is very unprofessional, and you're never going to make it at this company or professionally. And I honestly didn't even listen to him because he wasn't the nicest person, but that's the power of AI now because I never have to deal with that. But also that's the power of how severe dyslexia can be is I could not write at a professional level. The tools like Grammarly did not exist to give me this superpower. But now with the right prompt engineering and the right style, I can become this expert communicator, and I can take people like on my team, our chief editor, who can help me build a style guide and better instructions if I wanted to, or I can just work with ChatGPT to do it. And then I can always write how I want in my voice, and no matter what I put in there, it'll translate it based on these instructions to give me this beautiful availability of writing. And you can do the same thing with different, you'll see I have different ones for different purposes because I write differently. Marketing, I train it with SOPs. There's a lot in here. But anyways, I know I promised you guys a freebie. There's a link down below to subscribe to get all of my tools, resources, free articles, free leads, a whole bunch of stuff. So I would really appreciate if you subscribe. Also, if you're watching this and you're dyslexic and you watch the end, I really do appreciate it. Leave a comment. If you have questions, I will help you out. Yeah, thank you guys.